Hey everyone, tonight we'll delve into a tale that defies all logic, a story so ancient and unsettling. It's been whispered by priests and scholars for thousands of years, going back to the dawn of Japanese mythology, to the very beginning of the world. When gods walked the earth and the sun itself was still a wild, untamed thing. Imagine a swirling, formless void, the primordial soup from which all life springs. You stand on the edge of this abyss, a witness to creation. From this cosmic nothingness to great deities, Izanagi and Izanami birthed the islands of Japan. But their work is not yet complete. They must create the divine beings who will govern this new world. From the left eye of Izanagi, a goddess is born, Amaterasu, the glorious and radiant sun goddess. A being of such unparalleled warmth and beauty that her mere presence illuminates the heavens. But then from his nose, another god emerges, Susan, the storm god. From the very beginning, he is a being of chaos and contradiction, his birth accompanied by wails of such sorrow and rage that they shake the celestial plains. This is a story not just of gods, but of a family shattered by sibling rivalry. You probably won't want to believe what you are about to hear, but this isn't about heroes and villains. It's about the terrible, destructive power of jealousy and a divine family dynamic that went catastrophically wrong. So, before the tension gets too high, take a moment to like the episode and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Now, post your location and local time if you'd like. Now, close your eyes, imagine the ancient mountains, and let's unravel this epic tale together. As Amaterasu bursts forth, a being of pure golden light, the world holds its breath. Her existence is a promise of warmth, life, and harvest. You can feel her light on your face, a gentle, benevolent touch. She is a goddess of order, her domain a place of peace and predictable cycles. But then there is Susanoo. His birth is a different kind of cosmic event. He is all thunder and storm clouds, a restless, brooding spirit. From the moment he is created, he is dissatisfied. He cries without ceasing, and his tears are so profuse they cause the mountains to wither and the rivers to run dry. It's a bizarre and deeply troubling detail. God so overwhelmed by emotion that his grief becomes a physical, destructive force. His father Izanagi gives him dominion over the seas, hoping that the vast, boundless ocean will contain his wild spirit. But Susanoo refuses to be contained. He longs to join his mother Izanami in the land of the dead, a desire that perplexes and infuriates his divine father. Izanagi banishes him, an act of divine punishment that sets the stage for everything that follows. But the question that remained was, why would a god, a being of such power, be born with such an overwhelming and destructive sadness? After his banishment, Susanoo's sorrow is not tempered, is magnified. He is a god adrift, a king without a kingdom. You can feel his aimless, restless energy as he wanders the celestial plains. He is a storm cloud in search of a lightning strike. The world he was born to rule feels small and suffocating to him. His grief turns inward, and in a divine being, that inward turn is a dangerous thing. It manifests as a kind of cosmic entropy. He is an agent of decay, while his sister Amaterasu is a symbol of creation and light. Susanoo becomes an embodiment of destruction and chaos. It's an interesting parallel to some ancient Greek mythology, where gods like Hades and Poseidon rule distinct, often volatile domains. But here the conflict is not about territory. It is intensely personal, a sibling rivalry writ large across the cosmos. He has one last desire before he leaves for the land of the dead to say goodbye to his sister. He begins to ascend to the heavens, not in a dignified, regal manner, but with a fury that shakes the very foundations of the divine realm. The earth trembles, the mountains groan, the seas roil with unprecedented violence. This is not a journey. It's an assault. Amaterasu, watching from her celestial palace, senses his approach. She knows her brother. She knows his unpredictable nature and his capacity for destruction. She prepares for the worst. She unpins her hair, a symbol of her readiness for battle, and draws her bow. A bizarre detail to note. She wears a 500 jewel bead necklace and carries a 1,000 arrow quiver, not for combat, but as symbols of her supreme authority and divine readiness. The beads, known as magatama, are ancient artifacts that predate recorded history in Japan. They are often found in burial mounds, suggesting their use in rituals to appease the gods and ensure a safe journey to the afterlife. She is not just a sun goddess. She is a sovereign. She prepares to face her own brother, her divine twin, in a confrontation that will determine the fate of the entire universe. She is calm, methodical, and prepared, a stark contrast to his wild, untamed approach. This is the moment when the personal becomes universal. A family squabble is about to plunge the world into darkness. But the question that remains is, what could a god who has lost everything possibly want from the one God who seems to have it all? Is this a farewell, or is it the baggie? Susanoo's ascent is not a greeting. It's a cosmic event. He approaches the heavenly plane with a noise that is not joyous, but terrifying. The very air around Amaterasu's palace becomes thick and heavy, charged with a malevolent energy. You can feel the celestial silk curtains of her divine home rustle not from wind, but from his restless rage. When he finally appears, he is not the brother she remembers from their shared creation, but a figure of chaotic fury. He is disheveled, his clothes tattered, and his eyes burn with a fire that threatens to consume everything in its path. Amaterasu, ever the sovereign, holds her ground. She stands on the bridge that connects the heavens, her posture regal and defiant. This is a moment of pure, unadulterated psychological drama. On one side, a god of order, light, and peace. On the other, a god of chaos, storm, and emotional turmoil. Their divine standoff is the centerpiece of this cosmic tableau. She doesn't yell or scream. She simply asks him why he has come. His answer is a bizarre mix of feigned innocence and veiled threat. He insists his visit is one of farewell, a final goodbye before he travels to the land of the dead. But his words are contradicted by his actions. The air around him crackles with tension. The ground beneath his feet is scorched and barren. Amaterasu, being a goddess of light and truth, sees through his deception immediately. She knows he has a more sinister purpose. A fascinating piece of folklore from ancient Japan is the belief that the gods' emotions directly affect the natural world. The gods' happiness brings a bountiful harvest, while their sadness causes famines. Susanoo is a living, breathing example of this belief. Every mood is a disaster waiting to happen. To prove his true intentions, Amaterasu proposes a test, a divine trial by oath. She challenges him to a contest of creation. She will create divine beings from his sword, and he will create them from her jewels. The nature of the beings created will reveal the truth in their hearts. A god of pure intentions would create beings of light and good fortune. A god of deceit would create beings of darkness. But the question that lingered was, could a god so consumed by chaos truly create anything but destruction? The divine trial begins. The stakes couldn't be higher. This isn't a game, it's a test of Susanoo's very soul. You can feel the tension in the air, a silence so profound that even the celestial winds seem to hold their breath. Amaterasu takes Susanoo's ten-fist sword, a blade that embodies all his volatile, destructive energy. She breaks it into 3 pieces, and then she'll choose on the fragments. A bizarre and deeply unsettling act. From her breath, from the very essence of her, 3 magnificent goddesses are born. These goddesses are pure, radiant, and beautiful. A clear sign that Susanoo's sword, filtered through Amaterasu's light, can produce goodness. The 3 deities born from this act are believed to be the Munakata goddesses, revered in Japanese Shinto as deities of the sea and safe journeys. A quirky detail. In many ancient myths, goddesses are associated with the act of creation through their bodies. But in this specific case, it's a male god's weapon that is the raw material. This act is a symbolic purification of Susanoo's intent. Now it's his turn. Susanoo takes Amaterasu's 500 jewel bead necklace, the same necklace she put on for battle. This necklace is a symbol of her pure, sovereign power. He chews on the beads, and from his breath 5 male deities are born. But they are not as beautiful or pure as the goddesses. They are powerful, yes, but they possess a subtle, chaotic energy, a reflection of their creator. Susanoo sees the creation of the male gods as his victory. He claims that, since his creations were birthed from his sister's jewels, he has proven his good faith. He is a god who interprets the rules to his own advantage, a classic narcissist in the divine realm. He believes he has one, but Amaterasu, ever the goddess of truth, sees the subtle darkness in his creation. The outcome is not as simple as he makes it out to be. A divine oath in this culture was an unbreakable pact, a cosmic law that governed the actions of deities and mortals alike. To break it was to invite ruin. But the question that remained was, would a god as reckless as Susanoo truly honor an oath that didn't give him what he wanted? Or would he simply take what he came for, no matter the cost? Susanoo, emboldened by what he perceives as a victory, decides his oath has been fulfilled. He is now free to do as he pleases. His chaotic nature, held in check for a brief moment, bursts forth with renewed fury. You can feel his reckless energy ripple through the heavens, a sudden jarring change from the tense silence. He begins his rampage, tramples Amaterasu's rice fields, a deeply symbolic and sacrilegious act. Rice is the lifeblood of ancient Japan, the very essence of the culture. To destroy the rice paddies is to destroy life itself. He pollutes her sacred halls, leaving filth and chaos in his wake. His most profane act, however, is yet to come. Amaterasu, in her infinite patience, tries to rationalize his actions. She makes excuses for him, telling her divine attendants that his actions are just a childish prank, that he is merely in a phase. Her love for her brother blinds her to his true destructive nature. It is a very human flaw to see the best in those we love, even when they are actively hurting us. But Susanoo takes it a step further, finds a mare, a symbol of divine energy and grace, and skins it alive, a chilling act of cruelty. He then throws the flayed horse through the roof of Amaterasu's weaving hall. The horse, a sacred animal, lands in the midst of her celestial handmaidens, who are weaving the divine garments. One of the handmaidens, so shocked by this gruesome act, strikes her private parts with the shuttle and dies. This is not just a prank. It is a violent, malicious attack on everything Amaterasu holds sacred. Historical fact to consider. The horse was a highly revered animal in ancient Japan, often associated with divine messengers. A bizarre detail is that the act of flaying a horse alive was seen as an act of sorcery, a way to invoke powerful, malevolent spirits. This wasn't just physical destruction. It was a psychological assault, a deliberate act to break his sister's spirit. But the question that remained was, what could a god who had everything, a god of light, do when faced with a betrayal so deep and so personal? Would she fight back, or would she simply surrender to the darkness? Amaterasu's reaction is not what you might expect. There's no thunder, no lightning, no cosmic battle. There is only a profound, devastating silence. She doesn't scream, she doesn't rage, she doesn't even shed a tear. She simply withdraws. Her silence is the most terrifying sound in the universe. It is the sound of a god's heart breaking. You can feel the air around her grow cold, her light begin to dim. The betrayal is too deep, the wound too personal. She cannot bear to look upon the world that has allowed such a thing to happen, even if it was at the hands of her own brother. This is a moment of deep psychological intrigue. It's not a fight for power, it's a retreat from pain. She retreats into the Amanoi Wato, the heavenly rock cave, a physical structure. Yes, but also a symbol of her psychological state. It is a place of seclusion, a place of profound grief. She seals herself inside, blocking the entrance with a massive stone. With her departure, the world is plunged into darkness. This act is not an act of punishment. It is an act of self-preservation. She is protecting herself from a world that has hurt her so deeply. You can almost hear her whisper, I can't be a light for a world that has no light for me. A fascinating historical parallel can be found in the ancient Japanese practice of shikimi, or reclusion, where a person would withdraw from society to grieve or to show a profound psychological break. A bizarre detail is the sheer speed with which the world falls into disrepair. The moment her light is gone, the crops wither, the seas freeze, and the divine and mortal realms are plunged into a chaos of endless night. The darkness is not just an absence of light. It is a living, breathing entity that brings with it confusion, fear, and despair. A profound mystery. But the question that remains is, what happens when the very source of life, the sun itself, simply decides it has had enough and walks away? What hope is there for a world that has been abandoned by its creator? The world falls silent, not just a lack of sound, but a profound, suffocating silence. You can feel the cold seeping into your bones, a chill that has nothing to do with temperature and everything to do with the absence of divine light. The land of Japan, once a vibrant tapestry of green fields and flowing rivers, becomes a desolate, frozen wasteland. The rice paddies wither instantly, the plants turning to dust. Fish in the rivers and seas die, their bodies frozen in the murky darkness. The people, the mortals who once thrived under Amaterasu's golden gaze, are now plunged into a world of eternal night. They huddle in their homes, their fires the only source of warmth and light. But even the fires seem to lose their power, their flames flickering weakly against the encroaching gloom. The gods, too, are affected. The heavenly plain, once a vibrant, joyous place, becomes a desolate shadow world. The other deities stumble blindly, their divine powers weakened without the sun's radiant energy. It is a cosmic crisis of unprecedented scale. A chilling detail of this mythological event is the physical manifestation of the darkness. It is said that malevolent spirits, known as yokai, and other dark creatures, who could not survive in the light, now roam freely, preying on the fearful mortals. This is the world that Amaterasu has created in her absence, a world born of her pain and her withdrawal. The gods are now in a panic. They try everything to coax her out. They knock on the rock cave. They plead. They beg. But there's no response. The silence from within the Amano is more powerful than any roar or threat. The gods realize that this is not a tantrum. It's a psychological break, and it is a punishment far greater than any physical pain she could have inflicted. A historical fact of note: the winter solstice was a time of great fear and ritual in ancient Japan, as people believed the sun was at its weakest and needed to be coaxed back to full power. This myth is, in many ways, a divine explanation for the fear and hope that surrounded this natural phenomenon. But the question that remains is, how do you convince a god who has been so deeply betrayed to return to a world that she no longer trusts? In the endless night, a crisis of epic proportions unfolds. The 8 million gods, a metaphorical number in Japanese mythology signifying a vast, uncountable multitude, gather on the heavenly riverbank. You can feel the sheer divine energy in the air, a hum of anxiety and fear. This is not a casual meeting. It is a desperate council of war. All the deities of heaven and earth are present, each with a different idea of how to solve the problem. The gods of craftsmanship, like Omoakane, the deity of wisdom and intelligence, are tasked with devising a plan. Their faces are grim. This is a problem that cannot be solved with a simple show of force. This isn't about defeating an enemy. It's about mending a broken heart. You can hear their whispers, their frantic suggestions. Should they try a show of strength? Should they build a golden palace and offer it to her? Should they beg and plead? They try everything. Chant, they sing, they even perform ancient rituals, but nothing works. The great celestial hall, once a place of divine laughter and joyous feasts, is now a solemn chamber of despair. Intriguing historical tidbit. The number 8 million is not literal, but is an idiom, Yayurazu no Kami, that reflects the animistic belief system of Shintoism, where a deity or a kami can reside in countless objects and natural phenomena. This suggests that the very essence of the world, the trees, the rivers, the mountains, was now participating in this cosmic despair. A quirky detail in the mythology is the creation of a massive robed rooster figure meant to crow and signal the dawn. The gods even try to trick her, hoping she will hear the rooster's call and assume the sun has risen without her. But the sound of the cock's crow is a hollow, empty thing in the endless darkness. It doesn't fool her.
Oh.
The silence remains. But the question that haunted them was, how do you force a god of light to return to a world she has rejected, when she is the only one who can bring the light back? The silence from the Amano Wato is absolute. The gods' frantic efforts, the chants, the rituals, the roosters, have all failed. They've tried everything logical, everything divine, and it has all been for naught. The celestial assembly descends into a somber, silent despair. You can feel the collective hopelessness, a thick blanket of gloom settling over the 8 million gods. The wisdom of Omoyakane, the great god of intelligence, has run dry. No one has a solution. But then, a god steps forward who is not known for their wisdom or their might, but for their eccentricity. This is Uzume, the goddess of merriment, dawn, and revelry. She is known for her joyous and uninhibited nature. Her proposal is not one of divine might or intellectual cunning. It is a bizarre, almost absurd plan. She suggests they need to appeal to Amaterasu's curiosity, not her sense of duty. They need to create a spectacle so strange, so loud, so undeniably joyful, that the goddess of light, who has known only darkness and sorrow for so long, cannot help but peek out. Her plan is to perform a dance, but not just any dance. It will be a raucous, humorous, and deeply profane performance. A fascinating historical detail is that Uzume's dance is considered a foundational myth of Kagura. The ceremonial dances of Shintoism. Bizarre detail is her unconventional stage for the performance. She turns over a wooden tub and begins to pound on it with her feet, a rhythmic, primitive drumbeat that echoes through the silence. This is the moment of a radical shift in strategy. Instead of solemnity and reverence, they will try joy and absurdity. But the question that lingered was, would a god of light who had witnessed such a grotesque act of violence be swayed by such a bizarre and humorous spectacle? The stage is set, or rather, the overturned tub is in place. You can hear the rhythmic pounding, a strange, primal beat that breaks the oppressive silence of the heavenly plain. Uzume, the goddess of merriment, steps onto her makeshift stage. The 8 million gods watch with a mix of confusion and trepidation. They have no idea what she is about to do. Uzume's dance is not a graceful ballet. It is a raw, uninhibited display. She begins to stomp and leap, her movements wild and chaotic. She throws off her robes, a truly shocking and scandalous act for a goddess. The gods gasp. She lets down her hair and reveals her divine body. The divine world, usually a place of dignified formality, is now witness to a spectacle of pure, unadulterated hilarity. The other gods at first are silent, but as Uzume continues, her dance becoming more and more outrageous, they begin to laugh. A low rumble at first, then a full-throated chorus of joyous laughter. The sound of their mirth is a foreign thing in this world of darkness, a burst of light in the unending gloom. This is a fascinating piece of psychological warfare. The gods aren't just laughing. They're releasing the pent-up tension and despair that have been building since Amaterasu's retreat. It is a mass catharsis. A quirky detail of this scene is that Uzume is said to have tied a rope of vines around her forehead and adorned it with moss and leaves. A bizarre and comical costume that adds to the absurdity of the moment. The sound of 1,000 gods laughing is not just a noise, it is a force of nature, a wave of joyful energy that begins to lap against the stone door of the heavenly rock cave. But the question that remained was, would a god who had just witnessed a violent act of desecration be able to hear a single moment of joyous laughter without feeling a pang of curiosity? The laughter of the 8 million gods is a symphony of pure, unbridled joy. It echoes across the celestial plains, a sound so alien and so powerful after the long, silent night. You can feel the vibrations of it reaching the stone door of the heavenly rock cave. A relentless, joyful assault on Amaterasu's self-imposed prison. Inside, the goddess is alone with her grief. She has steeled her heart against all entreaties, against all pleading. But this new sound is different. It's not a sound of sorrow or begging. It's a sound of pure, uninhibited happiness. She has not heard such a sound since before her brother's betrayal. This is a moment of deep psychological conflict. Her mind tells her to stay inside to nurse her pain in the darkness, but her curiosity, an emotion as powerful as any divine force, begins to stir. A bizarre detail is that the gods' laughter is said to have been so loud that it made the very rocks and stones tremble. A detail that echoes the belief in Shintoism that every part of nature has a spirit. The gods, seeing that their plan is working, double down. They chant, they sing, they add their own joyous noises to the chorus. This is not just a plan, it's a desperate act of faith, a belief that joy, no matter how artificial, is a force that can overcome even the deepest despair. A historical fact worth noting is that the use of laughter and humor in religious rituals is a common theme in many ancient cultures, a way to connect with the divine on a more human level and to ward off evil spirits. But the question that lingered was, would a flicker of curiosity, a single question in a god's mind, be enough to overcome the deep-seated pain of betrayal? Or would her resolve be too strong? Amaterasu's curiosity gets the better of her. She can't stand it. The sound of her divine family, so recently filled with mourning, is now filled with uproarious, joyous laughter. She cannot comprehend it. How can they be celebrating? What could possibly be happening outside her cave that is so wonderful? She is the sun. Her absence should mean nothing but despair. She moves the stone just a crack, a sliver of an opening, just enough to peek through. The darkness, which has been so absolute, is now pierced by a single tiny beam of light. A fascinating psychological element is that this is not a moment of divine forgiveness, but of pure human-like nosiness. She is a goddess, but in this moment she is consumed by a very relatable emotion, the need to know. The gods outside, sensing her slight movement, hold their breath. The laughter dies down, and a strange silence settles over them. It's a silence of anticipation, of desperate hope. One of the gods, the deity of foresight, whispers to the others to be ready. The plan is in motion. A quirky detail is that, in some versions of the myth, Amaterasu's curiosity is piqued not just by the laughter, but also by Uzume's claim that a new, more glorious sun goddess has appeared. This is the first lie, the first act of divine deception in this grand drama. This simple act of curiosity, this small crack in the cosmic veil, is the moment that everything changes. A historical note. The act of peeking through a crack in a door is a common trope in Japanese folklore, often signifying a moment of fateful decision. But the question that lingered was, what would a god see when they looked out into a world that had so recently betrayed them? Would they see the truth or a clever deception? As Amaterasu's eye peeks through the crack, the gods spring their trap. You can feel the swift, silent energy of their movements. Before the cave entrance, they have strategically placed a large mirror, a circular piece of polished bronze known as the Yata no Kagami. This is not just an ordinary mirror, but is a sacred relic, one of the 3 imperial regalia of Japan, along with a sword and a jewel. It is said to have the power to reflect the truth of a person's soul. Next to the mirror, they have placed a beautiful, polished jewel, the Yasakani no Magatama, a symbol of royal authority. These artifacts are not just props, they're divine lures, designed to appeal to the goddess's vanity and her sense of cosmic order. When Amaterasu's gaze falls upon the mirror, she sees a reflection of herself. But it is not a reflection of a goddess in mourning. Hush. It is a reflection of a radiant, glorious sun goddess, her light more brilliant than ever before. This is the divine lie, the beautiful, captivating deception. She is tricked into believing that another sun goddess has appeared in her place. An interesting historical note. The mirror is one of the most important symbols in Shintoism, representing purity and truth, as it reflects the soul of the person looking into it. A bizarre detail is the way the mirror was placed. The gods intentionally angled it so the reflection would be blindingly bright, almost forcing her to look. But the question that remained was, could the reflection of a god's own glory be a cage? Could a goddess be so entranced by her own light that she would forget her pain? Amaterasu, seeing the reflection of another sun goddess, is shocked. She cannot believe that another deity could be as radiant as she is. Her curiosity turns to a sense of divine rivalry. She has to see this new goddess. She has to prove that she is the one true sun. She pushes the stone a little more, widening the gap. A little more of her light spills out, a glorious golden beam that slices through the darkness. The gods, seeing her hesitation, burst into an even louder chorus of laughter. They know they have her hooked. This new round of laughter is not for Uzume's dance, but for their clever deception. It is a triumphant sound, a celebratory noise that fills the heavens. You can almost hear their inner thoughts. She's coming out. We did it. This is a moment of pure raw manipulation. The gods are using a god's vanity against her. A fascinating historical detail is that in many ancient myths, including Greek mythology and Norse legends, the gods are not infallible beings. They are prone to human-like flaws like pride, jealousy, and anger. Amaterasu, in this moment, is a perfect example of this. A quirky detail is that as Amaterasu widened the gap in the cave, the gods quickly moved another mirror into place, so that no matter where she looked, she would see the blinding reflection of her own light. The world outside the cave, so recently in despair, is now a stage for a divine conspiracy. But the question that remained was, would the sheer force of her own light reflected back at her be enough to pull her fully out of the cave? Or would she realize the deception before it was too late? The sight of the other sun goddess is too much for Amaterasu. She pushes the stone completely away and steps out of the cave. Light bursts forth and the world is instantly and gloriously illuminated. The eternal night is over. Crops begin to grow, the seas unfreeze, and the malevolent spirits scurry back into the shadows. The 8 million gods cheer, a sound of pure relief and joy. But even in this moment of triumph, there is a chilling final act of divine deception. As Amaterasu stands in the glorious light, fully out of the cave, the god Amno Tadakaro, the god of immense strength, quickly seals the cave entrance with a massive rope known as a Shimenawa. This rope is not just a physical barrier, it is a sacred spiritual one. Once it is in place, the goddess can never retreat back into the cave. This is the moment when Amaterasu is not only pulled out of her depression, but also permanently trapped in the world. An interesting historical fact. Shimenawa ropes are still used today in Shinto shrines to mark sacred spaces and to ward off evil spirits. A bizarre detail is that the rope is said to have been made from twisted straw, a common, humble material that was elevated to a tool of divine imprisonment. Amaterasu, in this moment, is no longer the sovereign who chose to retreat. She is now the sun, a being with no choice but to shine. The world is saved, but at what cost? She is forever bound to a world that betrayed her, a world that used her own light to trick her. But the question that remained was, what kind of God, or what kind of person, could ever be truly happy knowing they were no longer free to leave? Susanoo, the disgraced god, sees his chance for redemption. He agrees to save the family's last daughter, Kushinadaheim, but only on one condition. He must marry her. The desperate parents, having no other choice, agree. You can feel the strange tension in this bargain, a hero's promise, tainted by the god's self-interest. But Susanoo's plan to defeat the serpent is not one of brute force. It is a clever, devious strategy, befitting his cunning nature. He instructs the couple to brew a massive amount of sake, a potent rice wine. He then has them build a fence with 8 gates, and at each gate he places a large vat filled with the sake. This is the stage for his epic confrontation. This is not a battle of strength, but a battle of wits. A historical fact worth noting is that sake has been a central part of Japanese culture and Shinto rituals for thousands of years, often used as an offering to the gods. A quirky detail is the sheer volume of sake required for the plan. It is said to have filled a lake. Susanoo then waits. The colossal serpent, true to its nature, emerges from the mountains. Its 8 heads, each with eyes burning like coals, sniff the air. The smell of the sake is irresistible. The serpent, a creature of pure instinct, falls for the trap. It dips each of its 8 heads into a vat and drinks greedily, its monstrous body writhing with drunken pleasure. But the question that remained was, could a god, a master of chaos, truly control a situation so complex? Or would the serpent's power prove too much, even for a cunning deity? The serpent's 8 heads, drunk and incapacitated, slumped to the ground. This is Susan's moment. He unsheathes his sword, a blade of pure divine steel, and begins his assault. You can hear the clang of his sword against the monstrous scales, a symphony of vengeance. He systematically cuts off each of the serpent's heads, one by one. The monstrous body, writhing in its death throes, finally goes still. The land which has been in terror for so long is finally free. This is the moment of Susanoo's profound redemption. He is no longer just a reckless, destructive god. He is a hero, a savior. A fascinating piece of folklore from this region is the belief that the Yamata no Orochi serpent was a manifestation of the violent, destructive forces of the rivers and floods, and its defeat represented the taming of nature. A bizarre detail is what happens when he cuts off the 8th tail. His sword, his powerful divine weapon, suddenly strikes something hard, the blade, his most trusted tool chips. Intrigued, he cuts open the tail and discovers a magnificent sword hidden within. A blade of such unparalleled beauty and power that it gleams in the darkness. This sword, the Kusanagi no Tsurugi, or grass-cutting sword, is a legendary artifact that will become one of the 3 imperial regalia of Japan, along with the mirror and the jewel. It is a symbol of a warrior's valor and a king's sovereignty. But the question that lingered was, what would a god who had just found a new purpose do with a weapon of such immense power? Would he use it for good, or would the old ways of destruction win out? Susunyu, the redeemed hero, has the sword in his hand. He is no longer the disgraced god of chaos, but a divine warrior with a purpose. He takes the sword, and in a final act of respect, and perhaps a gesture of peace, presents it to his sister, Amaterasu. The sword, found in the tail of a serpent, is a symbol of his victory and his newfound maturity. This act is not just a gift, it is a plea for forgiveness, an offering of peace after the cosmic war they waged. The sword is a testament to the fact that even from the most destructive of forces, something beautiful and useful can be born. Amaterasu, the glorious sun goddess, accepts the sword. She places it in her palace, a silent acknowledgement of his changed nature. The Kusanagi no Tsurugi becomes a part of the divine regalia, a testament to the complex and often contradictory nature of the gods. A historical fact of note is that this sword is still a central piece of the Japanese imperial regalia, though its location and very existence are shrouded in mystery. A bizarre detail of this exchange is the complete lack of dialogue. There is no conversation, no grand apology, just the silent exchange of a weapon. The sword speaks for him. But the question that remained was, could a single act, no matter how grand, truly erase the memory of the darkness? The trauma of the night she spent in a cage of her own grief? The world is restored, but the trauma of the darkness leaves a lingering psychological mark. You can feel it in the air, a subtle anxiety that never quite fades. The gods, who once took the sun for granted, now watch it with a new kind of reverence. They built the Shimenawa to ensure Amaterasu would never retreat again, but they also created a cosmic paradox. They freed her from her grief, only to bind her to her duty. The land, too, bears the scars. The first few days after her return, the plants that were frozen to death still look weak. The rivers that were stilled with ice flow sluggishly. The memory of the eternal night is etched into the very soil of Japan. This isn't just a physical restoration, it's a psychological one, and it is slow and difficult. A fascinating parallel is found in the psychological phenomenon of post-traumatic growth, where a person who has endured a traumatic event comes out of it with a new appreciation for life, but also with a lingering fear of a return to the darkness. Amaterasu is a perfect example of this. She shines brighter than ever, but her light now has a sense of purpose and duty rather than just a natural state of being. A bizarre detail is the use of the mirror. It is said that after the event, the gods left the mirror in front of the cave as a permanent reminder of the deception and a constant threat. But the question that lingered was, could a god ever truly forgive the world that used her own light to trap her? The events of the Amano Iwado, the heavenly rock cave, are more than just a myth. They are a profound, deeply resonant allegory for the relationship between the divine and the mortal. The gods, who are supposed to be perfect beings, are shown to be flawed, jealous, and manipulative. Amaterasu, the goddess of light, is revealed to have a very human capacity for deep depression and a need for solitude. Susanoo, the god of chaos, is capable of both immense destruction and profound redemption. You can see the reflection of our own human nature in their epic struggle. This is a story about the untold truths behind the deities, the reality that they are not so different from us. A fascinating historical note is that this myth is a central pillar of Shintoism, which emphasizes the animistic nature of the gods and their deep connection to the natural world. It explains why Japanese culture has such a reverence for nature, as the land itself is seen as a living testament to the gods' emotions. A quirky detail is the subtle suggestion in some ancient texts that the entire event was a test, a trial by fire, to see if the gods were worthy of the light. But the question that remained was, if the gods are so flawed, what hope is there for us, their creations? And if the gods are a mirror of us, what does that say about the darkness in our own hearts? The final, unsettling piece of this cosmic puzzle lies with the mirror. The Yata no Kagami, the sacred mirror used to trick Amaterasu, holds a dark secret. It is not just a tool of deception. It is a symbol of a new, more terrifying reality. The gods, in their fear, decided that they could not trust the sun to shine on its own volition. They needed a failsafe, a permanent reminder of her obligation. The mirror became a psychic link. It is said that when Amaterasu looks into the mirror, she no longer sees her own reflection, but a reflection of the world that depends on her light. She sees the crops growing, the rivers flowing, the people living their lives. She sees her duty. A fascinating historical detail is that mirrors in ancient Japanese culture were not just for vanity. They were seen as portals to the spirit world, a way to communicate with the divine. A bizarre detail is that the mirror is believed to have a mind of its own, a silent, unblinking eye that watches the goddess forever, ensuring she never wavers from her duty. But the question that remained was, is a life of forced duty truly a life at all? And what happens when a god's reflection becomes a cage? The myth of the sun goddess and the storm god is, at its core, a story of a great cosmic theft. The world didn't ask for the sun's light, it took it. It used a clever deception, a beautiful lie to force a god to shine forever. Amaterasu is not a benevolent ruler. She is a magnificent, powerful prisoner. Her light is not a gift. It is a cosmic obligation. The gods, in their fear of the darkness, stole her freedom. This is the untold truth, the terrifying reality behind the epic tale. You can stand on a sacred mountain in Japan today and feel the warmth of the sun on your face, but now you know the truth. You know that the light you feel is a light that was stolen. a god's freedom that was sacrificed for the good of all. Fascinating piece of cultural lore. The sun is still seen as a benevolent force in Japan, but there is also a deep-seated respect and fear for its power, a subconscious acknowledgement of the price it paid. A bizarre detail is that the Shimenawa rope that sealed the cave is said to be renewed every year, a ritual that symbolically reenacts the imprisonment of the goddess. But the question that lingered was, if the world, even the divine world, is built on a lie, what does that say about the nature of our own reality? The sun sets tonight, as it always does. The world, for a brief time, is plunged into a gentle, welcomed darkness. The moon, Amaterasu's brother, Tsukuyomi, will rise to watch over the night. But now, when you look up at the stars, you know the truth. You know that the glorious, magnificent light you see in the morning is the light of a goddess who was tricked, a being who was forced to be a source of unending warmth and life. She is the sun, yes, but she is also the cage, the reflection, and the duty. Her story is a testament to the fact that even the most powerful beings can be vulnerable, and even the most epic of tales can be a story of theft and deception. It is a terrifying, beautiful, and deeply human truth. Amaterasu is a goddess, but she is a god who understands what it is to have her freedom stolen. Her story is a warning. Be careful what you wish for you may just get it. But the question that remains is, when the sun rises again tomorrow, will you see a benevolent light, or will you see the gentle, sad light of a goddess who was stolen forever? The air grows still now. The stars seem to flicker and fade just a little. The story is over, the truth's revealed. The sun, a silent, unblinking eye in the sky, keeps its eternal watch. You can let go of the tension now. Let the epic words settle within you. This isn't a story of good and evil, but a story of gray, of the complex and often painful reality that lies behind even the most glorious of myths. The darkness we feared has not returned, but the light has a new, more profound meaning. It is not just the promise of a new day, but the silent, unblinking sacrifice of a God who shines on, not because she wants to, but because she must. Close your eyes now. Feel the final gentle warmth of the sun on your skin, and know that it is a warmth born of a stolen freedom. The myth is over, but the light in its terrifying truth remains.